Here's something that might shock you. While most people spend their weekends binge-watching Netflix, families across Alabama are literally digging up pieces of history that are older than the dinosaurs. Every summer, something extraordinary happens that most people never hear about. The University of Alabama transforms ordinary weekends into time-traveling adventures that would make Indiana Jones jealous. But here's where it gets controversial. Should these ancient treasures really be accessible to anyone with a shovel and some free time? Let me paint you a picture. Picture this. 3 packed vans rolling out from the University of Alabama campus. Their destination, a seemingly ordinary creek with an extraordinary secret. Sharktooth Creek isn't your typical weekend getaway spot. But for the Alabama Museum of Natural History, it's become the centerpiece of their most popular public program, fossil hunting expeditions that are changing how we think about science education. These aren't your typical field trips. Every single van is crammed from floor to ceiling with an eclectic mix of treasure hunters. Wide-eyed children clutching plastic buckets, parents armed with cameras, grandparents sharing stories of their own childhood adventures, and dedicated amateur paleontologists who live for the thrill of discovery. The diversity is remarkable, and frankly, it raises an interesting question about who really owns scientific discovery in the modern age. But here's the part most people miss. The location itself tells an incredible story that spans millions of years. What we now call the Alabama Black Belt wasn't always the landlocked region we know today. In fact, this entire area once lay beneath ancient ocean waters, serving as a bustling underwater metropolis teeming with marine creatures that would make today's ocean life look tame by comparison. Dr. John Friel, who serves as the director of the museum, puts it in perspective with a statement that never fails to give visitors goosebumps. Once you get in this creek bed and start looking through the gravel, you start seeing these 84 to 85 million-year-old marine fossils. Let that sink in for a moment. We're talking about creatures that lived and died when the world looked completely different than it does today. The creek bed where these modern-day treasure hunters gather their finds was once home to massive prehistoric sharks and fearsome mosasaurs. Marine reptiles that could grow longer than a school bus and had jaws powerful enough to crush almost anything in their path. These weren't just any ordinary sea creatures. They were the apex predators of their time, ruling ancient seas that covered much of what we now call Alabama. Every shovelful of seemingly ordinary clay and gravel holds the potential for discovery. But here's where things get interesting and perhaps a bit controversial. Is this democratization of paleontology helping or hurting scientific research? Some argue that letting the general public dig for fossils creates invaluable educational opportunities and sparks interest in science among young people. Others worry that important specimens might be damaged or lost to science when they end up in private collections rather than research institutions. The expeditions have created something unique, a bridge between professional scientific research and public curiosity. For many families, these trips represent their first real hands-on encounter with paleontology, geology, and the vast timeline of Earth's history. Children who might never show interest in a science textbook suddenly become fascinated when they're holding a genuine fossil that's older than they can possibly comprehend. What makes these expeditions particularly special is how they transform abstract concepts into tangible experiences. When a 7-year-old finds their first shark tooth, they're not just picking up an old piece of calcium phosphate. They're connecting with a predator that once ruled seas that existed before flowers, before grass, before most of the life forms we take for granted today. This content originally appeared as part of a collaborative effort between the Alabama Weather Blog and the Alabama News Center, organizations dedicated to highlighting the people and initiatives that make Alabama a fascinating place to explore and call home. The partnership represents a growing trend of science communication that brings research out of academic isolation and into community conversation. But let's address the elephant in the room. Should scientific specimens be available for public collection, or should they remain strictly within the domain of trained researchers? It's a debate that extends far beyond Alabama's creek beds and touches on fundamental questions about scientific accessibility, education, and preservation. So here's my question for you. Do you think these public fossil expeditions are a brilliant way to inspire the next generation of scientists? Or do you worry that we're potentially losing valuable research opportunities by allowing amateur collectors to take home their finds? And more importantly, would you be brave enough to spend your weekend digging through ancient creek beds, knowing you might come face to face with the remains of creatures that once terrorized prehistoric seas? The comment section is waiting for your thoughts, and I have a feeling this topic might spark some heated discussion among both amateur fossil hunters and professional paleontologists alike.